Welcome to Scam of the Week, and what is the scam with the Greens? So the Greens sallied forth this week with some eminently sensible policy to make Australia a fairer place, dump negative gearing and capital gains tax relief. The two things which have supersized gains for property investors, including foreign property investors, over the past 25 years to the detriment of young Australian and older Australian home buyers. A policy to level the playing field on housing affordability for younger Australians versus investors. And they got mostly ignored, but also bagged by the media and political duopolies. Check out this one. Greens want to force negative gearing and CGT back on the agenda, cried the Smage. The Sydney Mansion Herald and The Aged. Over at Holt Street, the headline was, "Ransom Note 2 PM. They were wailing at Rupert Murdoch's The Israeli newspaper over this outrageous policy, while the fossil fuel media obsessed over the TV leaders' debates. The Sky News Chinese spy ship was again in the headlines this week. Don't you worry, they stuck to their knitting, those fossil media people did, and the politicians too, in the debates. You lied. No, you lied. You lied. No, you lied. Keeping policy debate within the nice, comfortable band of what was acceptable to their corporate donors. Who pays? Cui bono. What is the scam with the Greens? On climate, the policy is in line with every reputable scientist in the world and the International Energy Agency, the IEA, which has even been coal-funded in the past. No new fossil fuel projects. End subsidies to fossil fuel corporations. That's the Greens policy. Not so, the Uni Party. On war crimes in Gaza, the Greens policy is in line with every reputable human rights organisation in the world and the ICC, the International Criminal Court, and the International Court of Justice. Arrest Benjamin Netanyahu, war criminal. Sanction the psychotic Israeli leadership, the government, until ceasefire in Gaza. Stop the genocide. Stop selling them weapons from Australia and denying that you're selling them weapons. So the Greens policy is, let's abide by international law. Liberals are, let's genocide, and Labor are, don't talk to me. Just don't talk to me. Don't want to know about it. It's too hard. On tax and income redistribution, the Greens are the only party to recognise the bleeding obvious that the richest organisations in Australia, the billionaires and the large foreign corporations, have the most capacity to pay tax to fund services for Australians. You know, the tax rate when productivity was rolling along nicely back in the 60s was 70%, the corporate tax rate. But they fell for neoliberalism and the idea of trickle-down competition. We had to be competitive, have a low tax rate for corporations. They just give it to their investors anyway. Who funds the future of the country then? It's going to be workers, is it? The people that pay proportionately the least tax, that's dollar for dollar, are the large corporations and the billionaires. So it's quite obvious. Tax them like they used to. What a novel idea. Certainly, there's been no triumph of common sense in our political process. Just too hard, because of course the major parties are funded by fossil fuels and large corporations. So it's no wonder that the right-wing nutjob machine is calling them terrorists Hamas. We don't agree with Greens' policy actually on this, on the taxing of billionaires and so on. We agree with the idea of it, but not the mechanics of it, because there's a few things they could do to enhance it, but they've got the objective right. Tax the people that can afford to pay the most. It's not going to hurt them or deter foreign investment. That's a furphy driven by the business lobby. Trickle down does not work patently. Where are the academics? Where are the academic papers on this? Oh, that's right, the unis have been corporatised. So the Greens are the only ones trying to do something about this, the bleeding obvious. Then there's foreign policy, of course. Foreign policy where the majors are all away with Donald J. Oh, top idea. Give Australia's sovereignty to Donald, the US. Don't sell it, just give it to them. Make us pay them $370 billion to buy submarines which will probably never arrive so we can rebuild their shipyards for them. Jobs and growth for the UK and the US. What a policy. Of course, what's going to happen? Send our young people off again for another American war, another useless war, to be fodder for the US war with China. And smile about it too while you're at the glitzy White House balls and press conferences. What a deal. Aukus. Greens say, get rid of it. The majors can't get enough of it. And this is while the US just slapped 145% tariffs on China, our biggest trading partner. And somehow this was a good thing according to the markets. Mr. Market, the market knows best. Well, it does over time, but certainly not in the short to medium term. Because the markets were hurtling on Wednesday night into bear market territory. That's a correction of 20% or more. That was Wednesday night. But the bond market, you see, didn't like it. It's the old who owns the debt owns the company. The bond market, the US bond market, as per our last video, is the biggest market in the world. And the Chinese, there was speculation that they were selling bonds and they're a huge bond holder. And if they sell bonds, they push interest rates up in the US, which was happening on Wednesday night. Close of trade on Tuesday in the US. So the Donald did a reverse ferret and pulled the retaliatory tariffs. And the market was overjoyed, 9% up. Donald's insider trading mates, of course, got set before that. They were front-running this trade. Massive, probably the biggest insider trade ever. Blatant. Not that anything's going to happen about it, but the market, they were all set, and so they made huge gains. And Donald then crowed about it to his mates on a video in the White House, in the Oval Office. So the market bounced violently. Donald's mates made a killing. Now there's a 90-day pause on retaliatory tariffs. Somehow that uncertainty is a good thing for markets, said the Donald's disciples, despite the full-blown trade war between the world's two biggest economies, because China retaliated with 84% tariffs on the US, driving up prices for American consumers radically. The markets have got it wrong from the start, piling in for the Trump rally, getting smashed, losing all our superannuation. But now, somehow it's a good thing that Donald has voiced that 145% tariffs on our biggest trading partner, China. And then they retaliate with their 84% tariffs. Well, meanwhile, the Atlassian billionaire is hatching his own plans to go to Mars. Big scoop in the Israelian today, so it may not be true because it's in the Murdoch press. But what is it with billionaires and Mars? What is going on? And what is it with the old genocide lobby? The Zionist Federation of Australia this week announced it was dragging Mary Kostakidis, former SBS newsreader, into court for criticising the war criminals in Israel. So here are the pro-genocide lobby, soaking up public resources, our court time, we fund the courts, as usual, trying to argue that criticising Israel is anti-Semitic. It's an act of the greatest bullying seen for a while. Too many scams to cover this week as usual, especially with all the election campaign hijinks. We'll have to steer around those because it is a massive distraction. But we should make mention of a little victory. We've been wailing and whining about this for years here at Michael West Media. Privatisation of public hospitals to the Cayman Islands. Now, the Northern Beaches Hospital operator has flagged, that's Healthscope, that it wants to put back the Northern Beaches Hospital in public hands. Indubitably a great idea. We don't know exactly what's happened here because the Auditor General was doing an inquiry in New South Wales into the Northern Beaches Hospital's financing arrangements, its finances. But it looks like this public hospital is coming back from ownership in the Cayman Islands. It's a good thing because, of course, the privateers from Brookfield don't pay any tax anyway. They're the operators. It's an absurd idea, giving public hospitals to cuff-linked buccaneers from the Caribbean. So we'll dig into that and see what actually happened there. But the nurses and doctors, the problem is you can't have this conflict of profits versus public health care. It's just too much of a conflict. Not that there's been any problem when I've been up there. I'm a regular customer up at the old hospital. I've always had excellent treatment from the doctors and nurses there, but overall it's unsustainable. So that's a really good bit of news this week. And there's some further policy differences meanwhile emerging in the Uni Party. The main one is that Labor is costed. It has shown how it's going to pay for its reforms or its tweaks to policy. So it's believable. Timid, but believable. And the Libs not, of course. They're still having a fling on the policy front or the brain explosion front, tic-tacking, backflipping on things. They backflipped on, work from home and backflipped on the 41,000 public servant sackings and so on. But they have announced that they will junk the National Reconstruction Fund. Now, that's the fund which forked out the big grant to Gina Reinhardt and start up a regional Australian future fund. Now, we'd have to look at the details of this coalition thing, but in principle, the idea of a fund which is managed independently by the future fund, they've done a good job, the future fund, except for investing in Elbit systems, merchants of death, but they've done a good job of independently managing sovereign wealth. But the idea of a fund where politicians try to pick the winners is a bad one. It's just open to corruption. It's just mates deals. Here, have $1 billion to invest in this great idea. And politicians are an easy touch. The future fund needs to have very large allocations to drive the energy transition, which will crowd in private capital with it and sell Elbit, for goodness sake. Greg Combet, Chairman, Mr. Future Fund Chairman, are you still an investor in the Israeli weapons manufacturer, which is busy murdering babies and children with their drones in Gaza? Are you? Well, it's time to get out, surely. Show some integrity. Sadly for Australia, the debate among the majors is driven by their donors. Libs keep coal and gas running for as long as possible, and Labor keep rolling out gas projects, but renewable energy at the same time. It beggars belief that we're even still debating this 20 years on, whether renewable energy is cheaper than fossil fuels. I mean, it's just nonsense. Chris Bowen at the National Press Club this week, apprehended by Sky News, pushing that line. You lied! In fact, the leaders' debates were so boring, Albo versus Pete, well, we hopped off a Zoom meeting just to switch over to the Sky leaders' debate held by Sherry Markson. The Zoom meeting was hosted, the one that we were on beforehand, that we hopped off to get to the Albo v Pete thing, was the Forensic Accountants Australia monthly Zoom meeting, and the subject was anti-money laundering, counter-terrorism financing, tranche 2 laws and the effect on the accounting profession. Riveting stuff. But you know what? It was fair dinkum more stimulating than the Sky News People's Forum, the You Lied, No You Lied forum. But that's what the media covered and that's what people saw, and that's where the political playing field is, just where the corporations and the vested interests want it to be. Negative gearing? Not on your Nelly. Capital gains tax? No. Let people make $20 million tax-free, flipping mansions in the leafy suburbs. Don't you go touching my holiday house tax breaks. Just insane stuff. All nose towards investors at the expense of ordinary Australians. But the scam of the week should go to the Council of Scots College and the grand opening of its baronial castle. The new Scots Library, yes, it's a library, a baronial castle. Is this tin ear stuff or what? Thanks to tax breaks on building funds, a scam, which has, this scam has created what they call in independent school land the arms race in private schools. This library, the baronial castle, has been subsidised by taxpayers. Yep, just like the demountables out west, which in some schools are now having to stack on top of each other. We just hope they've got air conditioning in summer. Again, the major parties are on the same ticket on education, more or less. Labor's a bit better than Liberal, but over-subsidise the wealthy schools. Now, this is mostly state government funding, to be fair, but what a racket. Baronial castle. And the funny thing was, it was outrage. In the Sydney Mansion Herald, it was outrage and indignation that Scots College had asked the parents who had themselves funded the thing with their tax breaks to pay for the baronial castle. They'd asked them to pay to come to the opening. They must be grinding their teeth down the street at Cranner's. Yes, the rival Cranbrook School, where it's not what you know, it's who you know, as they gaze up the street, as they live in the shadows of Scott's baronial castle in the afternoon Bellevue Hill sun. Maybe Cranner's will outdo them. With a publicly subsidised Westminster Cathedral with a helipad perched on its spire. Anyway, that's Scam of the Week. Scots Council, come on down. Your first scam of the week. Can't always give it to politicians and business people. Now, they've dropped this lawsuit against us, so we're going to come out with more information on that soon. But thank you very much to the people that helped fund it, because without that, we'd just be up for a year of legal pettifogging and costs. There's plenty of stories to tell in this one. But a settlement has been reached, and we can't talk about it, but we are going to talk as much as we can about legal abuse, because anybody now on social media, they can do it to you too. They decide that they don't like a post, they can come after you, have you served at home, rack up thousands, tens of thousands in costs, and then walk away. Lawyer's picnic. Please like, share, or comment, hit the bell. We've hit 100,000. Thank you so much, everybody, for supporting us. We're going to get our plaque soon, which we'll put here on the wall, getting to 100,000. So thank you for that. Please like, share, and comment, and we'll catch you on the next one.